What's up, you guys? James Strickland here. Welcome to week 47 on my road to 700 pounds on bench, and week 5 on meet prep for Bossa Bossa 6 in Mountain View, California on August 31st. Very exciting week this week, coming off of a deload last week, traveling a little bit with the wife, as you guys may have seen in last week's recap, but feeling good. Normally coming off of a deload, I have a lot of energy, but my strength drops just a little bit, and that's normal. So what we typically do is we back things off just a hair on the main lifts, just to make up for that, and then we ramp it up the following 3 weeks after that. But basically what we did this week was we worked up to a top set. It was 585 for 2, and it was going to be 605 for 2. I actually hit the rack. You'll see here in a minute on the recap. So I just went ahead and bailed on that one, but the strength was definitely there. Very happy with that. Building up the bench closer and closer. The plan, honestly, is to go north of 650 for the meet. I really would like to go a lot higher than that, but let's just see how the rest of the meet prep pans out. You guys will see some things in the next couple weeks. Obviously, the weights are going to get heavier, but I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. I want to be very smart about things. I want to be very methodical in my approach with training. We're obviously doing full meet training, so I can't just focus on one lift, but my focus typically is always on bench because that's really what I enjoy. But squats and deadlifts have definitely taken a front seat. So you guys probably saw the 725 squat a couple weeks back, and I definitely have some more in the tank. This week we opted to go for a little bit heavier deadlift. So we put squat, not necessarily on the back burner, but what we did is we dropped it down to a double this week with 690, which is a, let's see, to a 15-pound PR, 16-pound PR, because it was like 691. And that basically still puts us in reach of 730 squat for the following week, which is kind of how we're going to juggle things from now on. We're going to kind of, make some strategic moves. So we may do squat really, really heavy one week to kind of build the squat up, back deadlift off, or just keep it at a moderate weight. But then again, we're still talking mid sevens for both. So moderate weight is a is a funny term nowadays, but it's funny that I can actually say that that's a moderate weight for me. So we went 725 on deadlift this week. Grip is holding up very, very nicely, as you guys will see here in a minute. So we want to make sure that's holding up before we go any heavier, because we don't want to basically, you don't want to miss a lift in meet prep. That's pretty much the perfect plan. Plans always can get messed up, as you guys have seen in some past meet preps. Doesn't necessarily mean the meet is going to go bad by any means, but we do what we can to kind of keep control of the situation as much as we can, and then we deal with those issues as they arise. But feeling very, very good. My waking weight is probably low 300s on any given average morning, typically like 298. So I'm holding steady at that weight. I feel very, very strong. I am going to be upping the calories a little bit just to bump up. We're still going to be bumping up the numbers. I want to bump up my intake just to make sure I'm not losing any weight, because a lot of the extra weight and volume that we're still doing, because we haven't dropped it off yet, can affect strength, and that's the last thing I want to do. So just from a nutritional standpoint, multivitamins, things like that are always on point. But some of the calories can drop a little bit. I basically need more calories the harder I train. But let's jump into week 47's video recap. It's about 16 minutes long, so I'll do a voiceover for you guys. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more things like this. I've definitely put these out every week. As you can see, week 47, nobody said 700-pound bench was going to be easy. So here we are going through the recaps week by week. I'll tell you guys what I do, why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, just some tidbits of some information that I can give you guys, do some Q&As and things like that towards the end of the video typically. But if you have any questions throughout the video, definitely drop a comment below and I'll get back to you guys. So let's jump into the recap now. So I start off day one this week with my heavy bench press, and this is typically like one of my last warm-up sets. This is 495. I am training at Bona Fitness in Katy, Texas. This worked out. I had a lot of my training partners out of town traveling, whatnot. So this is a close gym to my house. Pretty much just went down the street, got in a squat cage, and was able to get my bench day out of the way. This is one of the top sets here. Set called for 585, and this is for a double. I got an audience over here, which I never noticed until I watched the recaps. So it's kind of funny, but it's definitely very humbling because I remember being that guy watching other people lift. So that knocks out the 585 for 2. Very, very smooth reps. Probably a speed rep. Just definitely under control. Throwing some 10s on here. By the way, if you guys haven't seen, these are Lockjaw collars. Steve over there at Lockjaw has always treated me good, sends me the collars, and I've got probably about 6 pair of those that I use various times of the year, and for deadlifts and squats and obviously bench. Those definitely keep the weight on. Solid pause. Hit the rack. This is a new rack I'm not used to benching on. I went ahead and decided that a double, I was already knocked out of the groove. My back had already lost tightness. It wouldn't be smart to go ahead and take another rep at that point. But I have no inkling to get hurt at this point. I have no problems with saying that was a good lift. This was a static lift, hold, 675, just for about a 10-second hold. Moving on to my speed reps. This is 530 pounds. The day called for, actually, I'm sorry, that was 525. 3 sets of 2. And I'm just showing you a couple of these here. And moving on, I'm doing some specialty work here. Got some bands and chains I'm going to show you. I actually have an extra plate that I didn't remove. It just goes to show that sometimes it's a little difficult to notice that you have an extra plate on. Anyway, so this band work here is to work on a sticking point that you guys may or may not know that I have. If you've been following along, about six inches up, about right around the top of my elbow sleeves there is about where the sticking point is. And as you can see, right about here is where those bands will kick in. And it just adds a little bit of extra weight. I don't need a ton of weight, just enough to invoke an explosive rep, because as that band starts to get a little tighter as you go up, you need to, in order to get past it, you have to explode with speed. It's kind of like a speed bump. If you go over it slow, you're not going to get over it. If you roll over it fast, you're not going to even know it's there half the time. Throwing some chains here does very much the same thing, but a slightly different way of the feel. It's not constant tension. The chain actually unloads on the floor 5 to 10 pounds or so, and this is probably about 50 pounds worth of chains total. Working on 405 there for a few reps, sorry. And then top set with the chains here is just a 505 for a quick double, and hit the rack again. That's kind of a theme here because those pins stick out so far, and it's a new gym. I'm not used to benching there, so just kind of take the good with the bad and just kind of move on with it. I wanted to show you guys this set. I didn't complete more than a couple, or actually I think I did maybe like 5 reps of this. This is supposed to be 190 pounds on dips, 2 sets of 5. And as you can see, my hands are very, very close to my body. That, for me, in my anatomy, does not work out very well. I'm going to do some dips later on this week, and I'll show you guys the difference. If you guys are having problems with dips, that might be the very issue, is that you just need to find a different place to do dips or a different angle to do them. When they're that close and they're straight back, I do not like that setup at all. Got some seal rows there, basically in chest supported rows with those 120 pound dumbbells. That was 4 sets of 8, just showing 1 set. And the last thing here is the IYT raises. And this is 3 sets of 12 with 10 pounds. And actually cut out on one of the reps. My camera decided to poop out for the day, having some camera issues there. And I do apologize for last week's camera snafu. It just kind of caught me in the middle of my voiceover, and so I did the best I could to get you guys the information that you needed without the video. Moving on, day 2 here, squats. This is one of my last warm-ups, or actually the last warm-up was 606. Showing you guys a side view here. I just want to make sure I'm hitting proper depth. And the set for today calls for 690 for a set of 2 reps. And I've actually got 691 on there just with the kilos. It's 313.5 kilos with the lockjaw collars there. Basically just rounded it up. Instead of doing 689, I went ahead and opted for 691. Got my buddy Jeff Yonker here, who is a 2160 raw sleeve total 308 lifter. I'll be looking for him at the Tribute here in the beginning of August in San Antonio. Setting up here for the 690. That was a little harder than I wanted. I went ahead and opted to re-rack it and go ahead and reset. My left leg was a little bit off. It's hard to tell from the video, but I stepped out on my walkout. I didn't set my heels equally, and I had a little bit more my left leg was out a little bit, and it caused a little bit of some tension, some tightness. It really did not feel good. I was not going to take another rep. So I went ahead and took a couple minutes to regroup, make sure that I set up properly this time, take a little more time. There's no need to rush. I don't ever feel rushed, but sometimes you can just get a little anxious. It's okay to reset, come back and hit it again. So that's exactly what I did. So the set is for 2. My personal best in the gym was about 3 weeks ago, and that was 675 for 2. So let's see how this 690 for 2 or 691 for 2 looks. Got Jessica Belt over here, Mark and Jeff Yonker, my training partners, Woodland Strength and Conditioning in Spring, Texas. Solid. Boom. Now, if you notice, I shifted a little bit on my toes, and I never got all the way back on my heels. So when I started this second rep, I'm actually on my toes a little bit. And right here, I'm having to really struggle to stay tight, but I fought it and got it. That second rep would have been a lot easier had I been in the proper position, but like I said, sometimes you got to take the good with the bad. PR, no doubt, 16 pounds for a two rep PR. Happy with that.
No, the first one was fine. When you came out of the first one, you shifted into your toes, and it was like you had to struggle to recover.
Pretty sure that will put me within striking distance for the next week to about 730 or more. Moving on, 3 sets of 3 with 495 for some speed squats. Working on really hitting the hole and just exploding up with as much force as possible. I'm a little bit tired at this point, obviously, but the intent is what matters, not necessarily actual bar speed. A lot of people will judge your speed squat, speed deadlift, speed bench on how fast it actually moves. That's not really the point. The point is to move it as fast as you possibly can at that moment with the fatigue that you have built up and all the other factors. Moving on, got my deadlifts on the same day as squats still. One of my last warm-ups, 585. Feeling the weight, getting the grip built up, ready to go. This is last warm-up here, 675. I remember when not only was this a PR, but this was a very scary weight just to see all those plates. But we've got something on the horizon for next week. We will be adding one more plate to this to make it 765, and that will be definitely a gym PR. So very excited for next week, but I won't let the cat out of the bag for everything just yet. Last heavy deadlift for the day, and actually to round out a PR gym total, training total of 2021. That's 691 plus 605 plus 725 here for this deadlift. It is a nice training PR of 2021, and I am excited about that. 5 weeks out from the meet. Very, very exciting. Easy pull there, 725. Grip is holding up nicely. Very, very happy about that. Moving on to some speed deadlifts. 555, 555, 4 sets of 2. Showing you a couple sets here. And actually for this set, you guys may have seen me do this before on a deload week. And this is same 555. I'm gonna hit one here. And on this one, I'm gonna hold it for as long as I possibly can. I have no idea how long I'm holding this for. Ended up being just about 25 or so seconds. The key here is just to hold that grip as tight as possible because when we have 800 pounds in our hands, I don't want the grip to be the weak link at all. And it has never been in the past, and it never is going to be, because I'm going to continue to work on things before they happen. You don't want to be playing catch up at a meet. Show you guys my calluses here. Nothing crazy, just showing you guys that I'm not slipping like I was the previous week. If you guys saw me doing those grip work sets. Moving on, I got some leg curls. I'm using a new machine. This is actually isolated per leg, so I did one plate and one plate each. That was 3 sets of 3. Last thing of the day is suitcase deadlifts, really working on grip. I'm actually using a deadlift bar, so I'm not even using the knurling. I'm using the smooth there in the middle, which really forces you to use that grip. And that's just 3 sets of 3. I'm sorry, 2 sets of 3. So I'm just showing you guys the first set here, 225. I remember when that was my deadlift. So humble beginnings. Really working on holding the obliques. Day 3. All right, so this is shoulders and my upper accessories. I like to start off the day here with my lat pull downs. This is wide grip, 190 pounds. Not too heavy, but 4 sets of 12 is enough to get the blood flow. I don't know exactly how it happened, but on my left side, just under my lat, kind of in that surface area, I got a little, I don't want to say it's a strain, but it feels almost kind of like a bruise. There's no bruising in the area, no visible bruising. Actually doing this voiceover about 5 days after this particular workout, so it's nothing serious at all, but I was a little concerned, so I went some neutral grip pull downs here, and this is the whole stack, so it's 220. Just really working on some different angles to see if I could activate that lat and see what is actually making it sore. Really couldn't find much, which gives me some hope that it's not going to hold me back any. Don't want any kind of injuries or anything, strains and things like that, and if I do, I want to make sure I take care of them. So as a precaution, definitely some ice and a little bit of massage. The massage irritated a little bit, so I opted to just keep icing it just to kind of get the inflammation down. But in this workout here, you can see this is using a lot of that back muscle, either for the shoulder to get set up in those shoulder presses, these throat pulls, and then I got some decline bench press here. So maybe just kind of do it now. The plan is 10 reps. So I'm just going to go, I might stop and go. If I step down here, then you're fine. If it decapitates you, I think it's So here's my motto: always practice safe sets. I'm sure you guys have heard that before, and if you haven't, that's not my original saying, but on decline, I don't care how much the weight is, it's not safe to do this alone. You definitely want to get some spotters just in case, or have some sort of setup, because there's nothing to save that bar from hitting your neck, and you don't want to be in that position. This 365, 2 sets of 10, and these did not hurt at all, so I'm very confident my bench is not going to be affected. Obviously, my squat and deadlift was not affected for the little strain that I was kind of talking about earlier. The one thing that did irritate is this set right here, and the first set, which is the one that I videoed, you can tell that I'm not actually straightening my arms all the way back. It's a little bit painful right there, and so I just went a little bit halfway, but it really felt good to open it up. I just didn't want to stretch it too much, because if it is a strain, it will irritate it. But just something I always look into is any type of soreness, strains, anything that feels out of the ordinary. I listen to my body, and that is what keeps me healthy. That is the secret right there to a healthy, long career, is whatever you can do to stay safe and healthy and injury-free, definitely do it. There's no reason to go super heavy on anything. If you're hurting, live to fight another day. But this is an accessory day. Nothing's supposed to be super, super heavy. Definitely feeling good about next week. Actually doing this this voiceover on Sunday evening. My last workout here was about Friday or so, and feeling very, very good. This is the redo set of weighted dips. A little bit wider, different setup. It's a little bit angled a little bit further out. As you can see here, my elbows are not forced backward. They can go out just a little bit. This is actually 201 pounds, so I went 11 pounds heavier. And from this angle, I couldn't really tell. I knew I was getting my depth, but went ahead and did another set like I was supposed to anyways. From this angle, you guys can see definitely hitting a proper depth, I guess, if you will. Everybody's got a slightly different depth. One thing I definitely do not advocate is to just let your elbows bend completely past 90. That is not healthy for your shoulders. Even if you are that mobile, it really just kind of goes past the point of working the triceps. I like to get a good hold here at the top just to really work those triceps and keep the weight from swinging. I put my feet down there. Last one was a little bit heavy, but I'm happy with that set, really working the triceps and being able to make up for that missed weighted dip exercise early in the week. Last thing of the day and the week, tricep push downs. This is actually 12 sets of 8, just showing you a couple sets here. 170 pounds, nothing too crazy. And that is going to end it for the week. Week 5 is down, and very, very excited to share that with you guys. Like I said, we are going to be going pretty heavy next week on everything as the meet comes closer. That's kind of the point of things. But my back is feeling great today. Kept some ice on it, just kind of keeping things down. And that sometimes I actually will tend to ice my shoulders if there's any type of tenderness or maybe some stiffness. I find that ice is my best friend. Now I will heat, but if it's like a bruise or if it feels like some sort of strain, I typically won't do anything with heat until it's been at least a few days of icing, just because I feel like the heat aggravates it. It's promoting blood flow, but sometimes what I really need for myself and what I find more comforting is the ice. It actually kind of numbs the pain, kind of dulls everything so I can sleep better, kind of get through the day better. And the other thing I've also thought about is if I'm not thinking about it, it kind of heals on its own, and time is going to heal things. And just thinking about it or being able to feel it constantly just keeps you thinking about it, and it feels like it's slowing the process down. So maybe it's just me, maybe it's just a mental thing, but I like to numb it, keep ice on it, as long as it's not frostbitten or anything like that. But I put a little ice on the back. It's a little bit tender. It's a little bit tender to the touch, but it's not tender for any type of push-ups. It's not tender for obviously bench. The weighted dips, everything went fine. So we're going to go ahead and go in tomorrow, which is actually Monday, heavy bench day. Warm up like normal. As long as everything goes well, bench day is going to go off without a hitch. We've got some pretty heavy weight that we're going to be putting up this week. So we'll kind of play it by ear, play it smart. If for some reason I get into warm up and let's say 495, 500, whatever the warm up weight is, if it starts to cause me some issues, at that point, more than likely what I'll do is I'll shut it down and either hit my heavy bench later in the week because I'm not quite warmed up enough yet, or I just cut it out for the whole week. It's not going to mess up much of anything. So for example, let's just say, I know a lot of you guys hit issues like this in your own training. If you happen to not be competing, then don't worry about this. It's not that important. Skip the week if you're hurting and just pick it up next week. If you're training for a competition like I am, let's worst case scenario, for example, and it's not that serious. I'm just giving you guys worst case. Let's say I go into warm up tomorrow, 495, I pause it and I explode and my back just pulls on me. And I know that spot that was messing with me last week is the culprit. I will shut it down for the day. I literally will take all my stuff and I will go home. It's very, very easy. You just walk out of the gym. Now, That might be hard to do if you're wanting to really hit your lift for that day. But what I would rather do, and what has caused me I've been luckier to do this than I have been doing it another way, is what I'll do is, let's say tomorrow, let's say we have 625, 630 on bench. If I don't hit that, in the next week, let's say it would have been 640 or 650, let's say. What I could do is try 625 later in the week, or just skip the week altogether and go for 635 next week, kind of cut the middle ground. Now, I still might be going backwards just a hair than what I wanted to do for the leading up to the meet, but let's say I go ahead and push the issue tomorrow with 625, 630, and my back's messing with me and end up tearing something. Now I'm out of the meet completely, because if I got a torn lat, torn back, probably not going to be lifting at all, not just bench, but squat and deadlift. So you got to really pick your battles. So I'm not worried about it. I'm really not thinking about that way at all, but that's the way I go into my training days. I go in with a backup plan of, if I, for some reason, get hurt or something happens, which it can happen, I got to be willing to just pack my bag and leave, or get whatever I can out of the way that's not going to hurt me anymore, get my work in and get out, and move on to the next bench day or the next squat day or whatever. But that is a worst case scenario. I really don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. Just so a little tidbit information, because I know a lot of you guys out there are doing very similar things to me, and I don't want anybody to ever think that I push past an injury or I'm working through, pain and things like that. I honestly don't work through pain, and I know that's a little bit hard of a pill to swallow, but that's also a very structured way of training. It might be painful to go through a set, but it's not going to injure me. Now, if it's an injury and it's causing me pain, I don't even think twice. I walk out. That's it. You just got to know your body. You know when you're punking out. And I never punk out. I do my job. I do what I got to do. It's strictly business in the gym. But what I'm referring to is, if I go in and I know that that particular day it's just not going to happen, I don't sit there and dwell on it. I just go, you know what? Today's not the day. Must be another day that I need to do something. Or maybe I just need to save some energy and hit a bigger squat or bigger deadlift or whatever. But a lot of it's just following the plan. So enough rambling about that. I do have a couple of questions and question and answers that you guys have submitted this week. I apologize. I do not have the actual names that went along with these, because it was done as kind of an Instagram story Q&A, and it didn't identify who actually asked the questions. I think for some reason it was my fault that I didn't catch that before it went away. But I do have the questions, so I'm going ahead and share those with you guys. I got a couple questions from Instagram story this week. I do take questions however you want to send them to me. If you want to email them to me, we'll leave them in the comments below. Shoot them to me on Instagram through a message or various social media. But the first one is, what do you think causes beginners to plateau on bench? So I'm going to actually reframe that question and say, what do you think causes people to plateau on lifts? Because it doesn't matter about beginners, and it doesn't matter about what the lift is. Honestly, I think what it is that most people just go in and they aren't consistent with something. Now, take out maxing out all the time, because I know a lot of you guys do that, and it's like constantly going heavy, 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 and thinking you have to maintain that constant strength in order to get better. Take that equation out of it, because I've already covered that in a couple recaps ago. That is not the answer. The other answer is not just doing a bunch of reps and doing hypertrophy, because that's not going to get you stronger. It's going to maybe build some muscle, get you bigger, things like that. But what I think causes plateaus on the bench is literally just not knowing what you're doing. You need to change something up. You need to change something about your approach. Most of the time it's consistency. And like I said, it's not about consistently going in and trying to hit 315 when you're trying to hit a 320 max. I'm talking about going in 2 to 3 times a week, or whatever your training split is, and not letting other things outside your gym life get in the way of those particular days of lifting. Now, that's not to say you don't have a balanced life. So you need to learn how to balance your life, balance your training. But when it comes to your actual training, when you are in the gym, when you're actually doing your gym lifts, you need to stay consistent with your effort. A lot of guys will go in and they talk for 15, 20 minutes, and then they may lift a little bit, and then they realize, oh crap, it's 3:30, I gotta go somewhere. That's not being consistent. Being consistent is making up a time frame that you're gonna be in the gym, you're gonna be focused on your work, and whatever your goal is, and you hit your sets and you get out. That's being consistent. Maybe you don't always hit it on Monday, or maybe you don't always hit it on a particular day of the week. But being consistent means if you're a busy person, which a lot of us are, you make sure that you get that work in somewhere, and that's the consistency. So even if it's not every single Monday at 3 o'clock, at least you're getting it once a week for one hour for each lift or whatever it is, and you're making sure that you get that 3 times a week or whatever your split is. But consistency, I think, is the biggest thing, and especially for beginners, because you don't know anything. And some of the seasoned vets out there who are some of the older cats, and maybe not even that old, but have been in the game for a while, you've been working out, just kind of being a gym rat, you've just kind of done everything under the sun, it seems like. Well, maybe what it is your approach to each of those things isn't that those particular training programs aren't working, it's just your approach to them, or your approach to going in and being consistent with them isn't working. But that's not the end-all answer for all plateaus, but just kind of my take on it. You guys can definitely reach out if you're in a plateau yourself. I don't mind helping you out and trying to give you my advice, just to see if I can't maybe scoot you along and point you in the right direction. So please feel free to reach out, help you guys any way I can. Next question is, what was my max bench at 15? So I've gone over this a few times, but I never get tired of it. When I started swimming, actually, I was about 14 years old. We went to the weight room like 0 times a week because we were swimmers. We didn't really work on weights and stuff like that. And if we did, we weren't working on max bench or max squat or anything like that. In fact, I didn't even do legs until later in life. So if I can remember correctly, and I've got all this written down, but at 14, 15 or so, and actually in high school in general, my max bench was about 200 because we just did a max out one day, and that's kind of what I got. Didn't really care about bench, didn't do a lot of bench until I was probably, or any more max bench attempts until I was like 25. So it was a few years. And I did like 300 when I was 25 or so when I was stopping swimming. And it was one of the last workouts that I was doing. I was probably around 185 pounds or somewhere in there. So a 300 bench at 185, didn't think anything of it. I thought it was pretty good, I guess, for the people around me, but I knew it wasn't world class or anything like that. Didn't care if it was. And it was probably about a year and a half before I really started doing any serious training in the weight room to work on a bench. Got with a couple guys out where I live and started creeping up towards 405, hit 405, and then probably within a couple months it was at 455. And it was probably, I'd say within 6 months or so, I was creeping into the 495, 500 range. But that was, over the span of probably about 4 years, 5 years from the time I was 300 to get into that range. But, honestly, a lot of you guys ask, like, what's good? What's a good average bench press for certain ages? Here's the thing. There's so many different factors that go into it. If you told me as a 15-year-old that you were doing a 185-pound bench, I would go with that and think, cool, that's impressive because you're actually doing something. Now, have I seen 15-year-olds, not very many of them, that can do more than that? But yeah, I've seen it. It doesn't mean you're number one in the world if you can do, 400 at 15. But I think, if you're doing anywhere near that, you're top 50, top 100, probably top 200 in the world, and that says something. But here's the takeaway from that. Do not compare yourself to anybody else. Just don't do it. I didn't know what a bench press even really was until I was almost world class. I never looked at anybody else and thought, I want to have that bench. I always thought, oh, you know what? If I can do this, that's pretty cool. I wonder if he can do that. I must be able to do that because what makes me any different? I never put myself, I always put myself on a level playing field. I never looked at somebody or looked up at somebody and thought, my God, there's no way I could ever do that if I ever wanted to. I have always been the type of person, and maybe it's a little bit of stupidity or naiveness. It's definitely not cockiness, where I see somebody doing something and I just think if I wanted to do that, I could do it. And there's a few things in life where I've literally done that. I've seen somebody doing a certain weight and I thought, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I think I could do that. Next thing I know, I'm doing it. And, I would have never thought I'd be squatting 700 pounds, 4 years ago. I didn't even care about squat. Just didn't really want to squat. Not that I didn't know that there was some benefit to it or health benefits or just being strong in general. It's like, maybe I'm a good golfer and I just don't know it. Well, I have no at this point in my life, I have no want to go and learn golf or to even pick that up. But what if 5 years from now I really end up being one of the top golfers in the world? That just things like that happen. So just follow your heart, follow your dream. Whatever makes you happy right now, as far as the weight room, go in and do that and be healthy, and you'll find that you're good at something. And that's where you really start to shine. Is I found, just fell into bench press, found out that that's something that I could really, really push on, and I have a gift for it, obviously. And I have a background with swimming, so that helped kind of build up all those underlying tendons, joints, ligaments that a lot of people don't have time to build because they're building muscles so fast. They end up getting injured, or they kind of grow too fast for their body. And I already had that kind of underlying, so I had, without knowing it, kind of had a head start, especially in the bench world. You guys are starting to see my squat and deadlift come up into the world-class potential numbers because I've been working on them, but it's taken me the time since I started powerlifting from that time until now to start getting to the point to where I can realize my potential with those lifts. I knew my potential within about 6 months of bench press, with bench press. So with all that said, don't get caught up in other people's game. It's an easy way to hold yourself down. I remember when I first started powerlifting, I had no idea what the top tier guys were doing lifting wise. If I would have known it then, I might have kind of freaked myself out, and I may have caused me to limit myself. I mean, if somebody would have told me, hey, nobody ever bench presses 500, that's just impossible. I don't know if I would have gotten to 500 as fast as I did, because it would have been a mental block. It's a very hard thing to shake, and you can say it all day long, but it's like 700. There's a reason why there's only so many people that have hit 700 in competition, regardless of body weight. It's because it's not easy, and it's not. I'm sure that more people will start hitting it as we go on, but we're actually evolving as humans. We're kind of getting a lot stronger, we're getting smarter with our training, and we're just kind of moving on. And I think powerlifting in general, strength sports in general, is doing that very, very well. But that's kind of it. I didn't want to ramble too long about that. Give you guys some insight, kind of how I think, how my training goes. Obviously this week, very, very well. Very excited to move on. Next week is going to be week 6, week 48 on my road to 700 pounds. But I really do appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. I think we're sitting at like 9,200 subscribers. I really appreciate that you guys care that much to stay on the journey with me and kind of go through the ups and downs. Obviously, we've had a lot of ups, and we've had a few downs. And hopefully this meet prep wraps up very nicely. We've got a few weeks left, so we're going to get kind of crazy here with the weights, but staying smart. But if you guys are on Instagram, definitely check me out over there at SwimHack. I post up a lot of my daily kind of things, some of the places I eat, the foods that I eat, the restaurants that I visit, some of the stuff that I do with my family, just to kind of round out the stuff about my life, not just lifting and recaps. But definitely find me over there, give me a follow, and you can chat with me anytime you want on through DMs and things like that. It's typically a little faster. I get those messages faster than I do the YouTube comments. But if you haven't already and you like this, definitely like and subscribe the video, subscribe to the channel, and appreciate you guys once again. And I will see you guys next week for week 48. See ya.